So, we are here with the remarkable composer George Lewis, who is also a distinguished professor at Columbia University. We are so pleased to present his work Emergent for Flute and Electronics. George Lewis, welcome to NMC.
Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate being invited.
Great. So, can you please tell us about your work Emergent and how it fits into the Recombinant trilogy?
Yeah, well, Emergent was the first of the Recombinant trilogy. There was no idea of having a trilogy. But it's like a lot of sci-fi stuff. I read a lot of sci-fi and there are a lot of trilogies in there. When they start out, generally there's just one book, or maybe there are more. In any event, Claire Chase commissioned this work and is performing it. And I guess I don't know why it is, but I'm really happy about the fact that so many people have been performing this work since she premiered it in 2014 as a part of her Density 20, what is it, Density 2023, I think it's called, that series of pieces where she's commissioning all these new flute pieces and all that. And that was dovetailing with some ideas I had about electronics and spatialization. I had made a piece in 2010 called Les Exercices Spirituels, which was an octet with 8 channels of electronics that was premiered in Paris. And I hadn't done too much with this spatializing software since then, but then here is an opportunity. And it began to take shape as we rehearsed it and tried out ideas and the Ice House there, the International Contemporary Ensemble. Eventually, it all came to fruition.
Great. And the other piece, another piece in the trilogy, Not Alone. We love that title so much that we named our whole concert after that because
Really?
it's all soloist with electronics. So it's just the theme of the show. So what is happening in the electronics in Emergence? Now, are they making decisions? Is there AI going on? How autonomous are they?
Well, I do have the AI stuff, Voyager and Rainbow Family from '84, Voyager from '87 to the present, and those are very autonomous. They're like improvisers. You put them into space, and whether you're there or not, they can do something. And if you're there, they take you into account, and they do dialogue and all that sort of thing. This is not like that. This is more what's come up in a lot of music pieces with electronics, which is that there is a kind of an operator, or maybe someone is pushing a button, and it steps through a series of treatments. And the treatments, I don't know how many there are in Claire's, might be 26, 27, 28, but each rehearsal letter number corresponds to a preset, and the presets include spatializing treatments. There are lots of trajectories, circles, squares, diagonals, zigzags, all kinds of things, going forwards, going backwards, going all over the 4-channel space. And then there are a number of timbre presets, things like changing the sound or the timbre of the flute, or adding bits, or transposing up or down, things of that sort. So it's really quite simple conceptually. And so it just comes down to what you can do as a composer in terms of this platform. Now, each piece in the Recombinant trilogy, the second one you named it Not Alone for cello, which was, I think, Seth Parker Woods. It was written in the same year. I think he's played it 30, 40 times. I have no idea. In fact, he's playing it twice this week. He's playing it at Harvard on Wednesday, and he's playing it in New York on Friday. And so there's the same kind of idea, the same platform. And so for each one, I compose different treatments. And the third piece, Seismologic, allowed me to get into the bassoon. Dana Jessen is playing in a way that, she has a lot of personal techniques, which she let me borrow these techniques in order to play the piece. Sometimes it sounds like duck calls or flocks of birds, or sometimes it's seismologic because we can transpose the bassoon like a couple of octaves, so it starts to rumble into the subwoofer range, and it's the whole piece is dedicated to a seismologist here at Columbia, Ben Holtzman, who we all know. And there's actually a fourth piece. In fact, I've done a number of pieces using this same platform that are not solo pieces. The most recent ones were the Minds in Flux for orchestra and 8 channels, which was done in the Royal Albert Hall at the BBC Proms in August.
Mhm.
And then at the sometime early September, there's a piece again for 8 channels and the 5 singers from the Neue Vokalsolisten of Stuttgart, and that one's called Amo, and it's Amo is about the Afro-German 18th century philosopher Anton Wilhelm Amo, and so the piece is using a text that he wrote in Latin, French, German, Dutch, and his would have been his native language, which is Twi, which is a Ghanaian origin.
And based on your knowledge of the current development of music technology, where do you think we are going with this? Like, will things become more autonomous as we go, or not? Are there exciting things on the frontier of electronic music that that are exciting to you, or that you can point to?
I don't know, like to talk about a whole field, that's really a lot. I talk about
Mhm.
where I'm going. I'm sort of interested in these machine learning strategies because Voyager and the Rainbow Family were not machine learning programs in which, in fact, a Rainbow Family and both of them were made before they really had machine learning. And so what happens now is that I have a piece with the Prism people at the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester, and we're trying to put together a version of Voyager that will indeed be able to recognize much more extensively than it can now. It works in the realm of pitch, a little bit of rhythm, but maybe it can recognize certain timbres, certain gestures that can be trained to do. And then I can make the score like for a chamber music piece that responds to that, so that there'll be a kind of the way that other people play. I mean, my sense of it has always been that I want the computer to be able to do whatever everyone else is doing. And the reason for that is so that people can forget about the computer and just play. And in particular, in improvised music context, if the computer is slowing things up or is a little clueless or it's not helping anybody. So the idea is you just should be able to forget about it because it's doing its part, it's doing a good job. And the better they play, the more you can forget them. So and I want the next level of this is to be able to play certain kinds of pieces like the ones I used to do with Anthony Braxton in the 70s, where he would write these pieces and there would be improvised parts and there would be written out parts. And the computer could recognize the written out part and kind of deal with it and incorporate that into the improvisation. Now, I tried to do this in '83 at Earcom with score following programs that I had made myself, actually, because there are a bunch of people using score following. Earcom had a very wonderful score following thing, and they've got amazing technology for that now. And I should probably look into some of that as well. But the issue for me was always, and maybe they've got this working now, I should ask people, to be able to recognize something from the score and then peel off and do something completely different and then come back and find your place. So I don't know if they can do that. Or maybe to make a lot of decisions that where you have different parts of the score that you can sort of deploy and in a modular way, in a kind of an open-ended fashion, and still have a sense that everyone is on the same page and that we're creating the page that where everybody is on, and that the computer becomes a part of that process. And in a way, it's like self-driving cars. And I always thought, well, if the self-driving car people would listen to the computer music people, maybe that might work
That I
better.
would like to see. That would be great. Yeah, I feel like we're almost there with score following software, and we're close to the day where we can get rid of click tracks and get rid of all those like triggering things as we go. It can be really responsive. So it's wonderful to hear about those developments. And finally, we'd like to ask our guests to tell us, if you will, about one piece of music by any composer in any tradition that you feel we all should know more about.
Well, I don't know what you know. I mean,
Okay, well, or that people generally don't know that many of us should know more about, or is not well
I
known enough.
mean, you know, this is a difficult thing to do. Let me tell you why.
Sure.
Um, um, I've met a lot of people getting pretty old now. A lot of people have had incredibly great impact on my life, and that has filtered into my love of their music. And so if I name one piece, I feel like I've slighted all the others. And so the idea that I'm picking out this one piece that everyone should know about, um, it's difficult for me. So I'd have to think about it because, there's so many implications. So many people are neglected now. I mean, the Afro-diasporic composers, that's certainly coming to the forefront now,
Mhm.
or what's happening with women, non-binary people and their compositions, and a lot of things. There's a lot of new energy coming in from people who were neglected in the past. So I wouldn't name a piece, but I would name a composer because I think, Andile Khumalo seems to be one person you should probably look for his work. He's from South Africa,
Mhm.
but he studied in Germany. He also studied at Columbia in New York. And the last couple of years, he had a new piece at Donation last week. He had these pieces with Ensemble Daliente, and his work is kind of really taking off. And it's something that maybe in years past we wouldn't have really heard because there was so little from the Afro-diasporic uh, community, let's put it that way, that was really being heard in classical music and new music. But that's starting to change. And so there are a number of people. So, but I would maybe, if you just want one person, maybe I'll just point him out. And apologies to everyone else.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That really he really sounds like someone that we should really explore with our series, and someone that our audiences would be interested in knowing more about. And we'll put some of his work up on our website so people can investigate further, and in the show notes here. So thank you so much. And really, we would love to have you come up once all the borders are all open, and have you come and do a portrait show with us in the next couple seasons, because I think that this is this kind of music, what you're doing with electronics, is just so important and so exciting, and we'd love to do more of it up here. So
Well,
thank you
thanks,
so much.
Brian. I would love to come to Toronto again and talk to my friends and hear some music and be involved with what you guys are doing. I really appreciate it.
Hi there, and we're here with Malin Bng. I hope I said that almost correctly. A wonderful composer whose music is played by prominent groups and festivals all around the world. We are thrilled to present her piece, Purfling, for violin and electronics. So, welcome, Malin.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Can you tell us about Purfling and how you came to write it?
Yeah, I was thinking at the time when I wrote it, it's a few years ago now, I was became very interested in the making of the violin, and also already I'm interested in all sorts of sounds, and I was thinking that it's almost like a paradox that while you're constructing a violin, there are many interesting sounds going on, but of course, what you're aiming for is to create an instrument which has the most beautiful, equal timbre when it's done. And you have to be so patient as a luthier to make this. And I thought when I saw different programs about it, I thought it's amazing sounds that are already going on in this process. So I wanted to see if I could create a piece around these sounds and let a ready violin, so to say, have a dialogue with the sounds of its own creation. So what I did was I went to study visit at a luthier in Stockholm, who is mainly making his instruments by hand with small hand tools. and we were hanging a microphone just above the work table and recorded everything for several hours. So it was everything from just holding the wood and feeling the surface, turning around, looking at it from several angles, or using small saws or rasps and files. So
Oh, so
this
all the sounds of the workshop,
yes, exactly, yeah,
get the electronics. Okay, well,
yeah.
fantastic. And string players will know what purfling means, but for the rest of us, can you explain what the title is all about?
Yeah, so purfling is part of the violin. On the top plate, there is it looks like a decorative line, which is maybe half a centimeter inside the edge. It goes around the hole, but it's actually you cut with a tool this line, and it is beautiful, of course, but it also has a function. If you bump into with something into the violin, there might be a crack, but then the purfling is supposed to stop the crack, so it never reaches the inside of the violin. So it's also kind of a protection for the violin.
Great. And are there any musical parts of the piece that refer to purfling, or is it more just about this beautiful decoration and the construction, or is there something musical?
No, it's not anything specifically representing the purfling in the music. It's more um, that I wanted to have a title that referred to the process somehow, and going through this, seeing how each part is built and how uh, you do when you arch the wood, and yeah, I wanted to capture something that is made at a specific point of the process. So, and I thought purfling is a beautiful word that I also didn't run into before I started to learn about this.
Same here. No, it's a beautiful word, and it captures, I think, the piece very beautifully.
Yeah.
And I love how you were talking about the manufacturing part of the violin, but also even from the wood and the sawing of the tree, right? So
Yeah.
and now is this kind of recording of the construction of things, is this typical of your work, or is it maybe more of a departure in this piece?
Yeah, I mean, I have had several pieces which has kind of a documentary noisy starting point. I have other pieces which have their starting points in different cities, so the urban surrounding has been the starting point. And I think for yeah, certain amount of years, I had a quite specific idea or something to explore from the beginning. But Purfling has a sibling piece which is called Arching. And this piece is for cello and tools. So, but I wrote Purfling first, and then in the second piece, which is have some material in common, um, instead of having the tools in the electronics, then you play the tools and on a plank as a yeah musician, as a percussionist. So those two are belonging to the same family, but and the noisiness in the beginning of Purfling is yeah, also because I wanted to capture even the part where you cut down the tree, how to get the material. So I couldn't go to Cremona in Italy where those luthiers often go. So I just went to a suburban area of Stockholm where I lived and recorded when a tree was taken down by almost by hand, by not the whole tree that was cut immediately, but a person who climbs up and saws each branch separately. So that is, if you listen very carefully, you can hear both the cutting or the sawing of a branch, and there is a little sound where you have a rope where it's sent down to the ground.
Oh, that's what
So,
that sound is. Yes. Okay.
yeah.
No, that's great. I love the idea of you making these field recordings where you're going around maybe secretly. Are you doing this secretly with microphones and then you take these sounds and then you transcribe them into I guess we could call them standard notation or it's musical notation, right? Sometimes there's lots of instructions and things like that, and so is like how do you go about taking those kind of raw sounds and then transcribing them to pitches and rhythms and I guess instructions and sounds?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me that challenge is very interesting, and it's so you can say that the start is very documentary. I just record something, start out from that, but then after I choose different moments from the recording, then I treat the material quite freely. I want to quite freely explore this material, so. It's also interesting to, I mean, I have played violin myself, so in this case it was, I could try out all the sounds on the violin. Also I made quite a lot of research with microphones. How can I place microphones to bring out these sounds of sawing and rasping? So that's why it became that one small microphone is sent in through the F-hole into the body of the violin. And then another one, contact mic, is on the frog of the bow. So this captures also like the outside world of the violin, this microphone on the bow and the inside. And then we have also the recording, which is both from outdoor and indoors. So anyway, with this microphone on the bow, it catches very much the friction of the bow. So especially if you use it in a vertical way along the strings, there is a lot of interesting sounds coming up. And just after the start of purfling, when you play with the bow the first time, you pull it a bit diagonal, very slowly, and it has a quite soft and rich timbral quality, a little bit with overtones, and that is very I found it when I was just trying different ways of playing the bow and different speeds and different pressure of the bow. So it's quite a fun part of the process, I think, to search for the sounds.
I think it integrates so well with the electronic sounds that you're describing. And it both integrates and contrasts beautifully because sometimes there's these violent sine sounds and saws and mechanical tools, but then also these very kind of intimate, very, very delicate sounds of bowing on the, on the wood. And it's just really quite wonderful. I think I'm sure that our audiences will be really excited about this piece.
Yeah.
And finally, we've been starting to do this, and it's we like to ask our guests, can you tell us about one piece of music by any composer in any tradition that you feel we don't know enough about, that we should know more about this piece of music and why?
Yeah, I can mention a piece. It might relate a bit to this piece. It's also, there is a violin in the piece and it's producing beautiful sounds. And it's a piece by a composer called Hanna Hartman. She's a Swedish composer but lives in Berlin and creates pieces which are often her own made objects and instruments. So I have also played this piece, which is called Borderlines. And it's for two persons playing an installation of wooden and metal objects and a violin that is in, basically the violin and the objects produce very similar timbres, and it's a very beautiful piece, and I think you can find it,
Okay.
it's online. So Borderlines by Hanna Hartman, I recommend.
Okay, Borderlines by Hannah Hartman. We'll send everybody to the Google and to Spotify, and we'll
Yes.
find that. We'll look forward to that. Thank you so much. Okay, well, thank you so much, Malin. It's been wonderful chatting with you about this beautiful piece, and we're thrilled to be presenting it. And we can't wait, now that live music is coming back, we can't wait to have you come and be with us. And we would love to present an evening of your works and have you visit us here in Toronto to work with our players here. So thank you so
Yeah,
much for being with
that,
us.
that would be wonderful. I'm looking forward already.
We're very fortunate to have Nuria Schoenberg Nono with us. She is the founder and champion of the Luigi Nono Archives. Welcome, Nuria.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm sure it will be a pleasure talking to you. And I'm very happy about this because I never want all of our participation, all of our work and everything to be just in Italy or just on the Giudecca where our archive is. And so, it's very nice to know that there's interest in all different places, different countries, different continents.
Well, here at NMC in Toronto, we're big fans of Luigi Nono. Our listeners are well aware of his work, and we're excited to present La Fabrica Illuminata, which it came with a wonderfully detailed score with all these amazing annotations, probably thanks to the archive. You're joining us now from Venice, where the archive is. Can you tell us a bit about the Luigi Nono archive and your amazing work in making this a reality and championing it?
Yeah, well, let's see, where do we start? We're very proud of our archive, let me say. And I'm very happy that so many people come and do research there. And we have about 100 theses, different sorts, like doctors and then just plain people who have studied something and wanted to write something about it and so on. So we, in these many years, because I opened this, my husband died in 1990, and in 1993, we opened the archive, not in the place we're in now, but still in a beautiful, large building. And we now are in rooms that belong to the city, which instead of giving us money, ask us for rent. But what can you do? We're in Italy, and we've been there since, in the new place, since 1996. No, 2006, excuse me, 2006. But we already had started with the giving possibility to people who are interested in Nono's music to come to another place where we immediately brought all of his big library. It's just 13,000 books.
13,000, wow.
Yeah, and all the scores, and the important thing is that we also have the sketches for all of his works, because the finished works are all published, so if somebody wants to see them, they can get them from the publisher. But we have, for every work that he's written, all of his sketches, and they are beautiful, and they're often, people think, they say, oh God, this is artwork, because they're different colors and very, very beautiful, really. So it's possible for anyone, doesn't have to be a musicologist or anyone who has anything to do with music, even, because you get people like architects come and want to see we have the models of the different, what do you call it? Oh God, Can't speak English anymore.
Oh, your English sounds great. So anybody can come and
Anybody
do
can
research
come,
there?
and I will give them a tour of the archive, and they
Yeah.
can see the models of the different first performances, for instance,
Oh,
how they were built, and any information they want, and they have free access also to the photocopies of
excellent.
all of his sketches, so that it makes it easy for me as well, because everything is organized and cataloged.
Wonderful.
And
So our
therefore,
listeners out there, sorry, our listeners out there can get a grant and come to Venice, and they would be able to go through and see his sketches and the first performances of all these works.
that's right. There are also videos and, of course, recordings. And yes, and then if I have something, if I can add something to it because maybe I was there, then that's also still possible.
Well, speaking of that, which we wanted to ask you about La Fabrica Illuminata. Can you tell us a little bit about this situation when it was written? So it was about factory workers in the 1960s in Genoa, I believe.
Yes, yes.
And are you able to tell us a little bit about the political situation surrounding these workers at the time and why it was important to write this piece?
Yes. Well, the workers in Italy at that time were very much into politics, so that they were in different unions, and socialist and communist, and I think Demo-Christians also, and that made it very lively, because they had meetings after their work where they discussed things, and they tried to change things sometimes to make the workplace better. And it actually, what before had been kind of a secret thing, the way it worked in a factory, it became something that everyone could find out about and know about. So I think that is really important, and that's also why he wanted to express this in his music. And he went to this big factory in Genoa and interviewed the workers there.
Mm-hmm.
And they, told him about what, how they had contracts which were supposedly to help them, but they were it was more for the factory than for the worker. And so they needed to fight for their rights too, which is very important. And therefore, he used parts of these contracts also as texts for the work. And what these people told him. And he even used the voice, what these people actually told him when he was there,
Right. And we hear the voices, right, coming out from the speaker.
Yeah, you hear the voices, and then you hear the noises that he recorded in the factory, which is pretty terrible, because most of these people, after working for a few years there, were practically deaf.
Right. And there's these huge sounds that come out of the speakers. And then there's the intimate voice of the soprano, who's just a single soprano with these huge sounds coming.
So there's both sides, there's the atmosphere in the factory. Mm-hmm. And there is when the person comes home and doesn't have a decent pay enough to have a nice apartment by himself, or there would be, like they have this thing, il giro del letto, which is one of the things that just really is, I don't know, I remember that really shocked me. And that was that these people would share their beds because they had different times that they worked. So a person was working at night would let the other person sleep during the day, and I mean during the night, and then, you know, they would use one room
Wow. Right. Yeah.
because I guess they weren't paid enough, you know, to be able to each have their own rooms. So it's, you know, that's kind of shocking when you come from other places and I mean, I don't know what it was like in other places anyway, but I didn't imagine that things could be that bad, you know, that you have a job and you're earning money and everything, and you have to share your apartment or your bed because you work in the day and the other person works at night, and so you can take.
Right. And just like we were talking before we started recording, is that this is still a theme that's very relevant today, right? With working conditions around the world. So this piece and the political motivation behind it, for which we know Luigi Nono's music so well, is still very, very relevant all this time later. So he was really onto something, I think, that was universal.
It was, I mean, I guess a lot of people knew about this, but they didn't talk about it or make it public. And so he went to the factory and he recorded with the workers' voices, which you can hear in the work. And also they recorded sort of interviews with workers, and then he used those in the work. Now this work was supposed to be for what they call it, a prize, you know, an award.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And I think it was banned by the government, wasn't it?
When they found out what he was going to show or say, you know, and they didn't want it anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, it was bad publicity for the country. Anyway, it was the first performance was in Venice at the Teatro La Fenice.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in charge of helping the soprano, Carla Henius. I don't know, getting the right clothes to wear, and taking care of her, which was necessary because she was a wonderful lady who was, you know, she felt very strong and she had a great voice and everything. And so she went swimming on Lido in April. It was still cold. And then she got this terrible, more than a cold. I mean, just really
oh no.
Yeah. And so the week before she was supposed to sing the first performance, she was in a hotel room quite near to the theater, and had a high fever. And so I was pregnant at that time, and but she was like on the 5th floor, and I had to run up and down the stairs to get things for her. And I got clothes for her, which was, you know, Gigi had decided, you know, she should wear a blouse and a long skirt. So I went and brought her the things, and then we got a doctor for her, and she was really sick. She had a throat infection, which is the worst thing
before the performance.
A singer could have, you know?
Yeah.
But she took her medicine, everything, and she came, I think, only to the dress rehearsal, and then to the performance, obviously. And she was fantastic. I mean, she was so strong, you know, and she said, you know, when she got up on the stage, she was not sick anymore. I mean, it just over, you know, she was doing her thing. Right. And she was amazing. And of course, the electronics she had never heard.
She just at the dress rehearsal.
All the noises she hadn't heard, so she heard those the first time in the dress rehearsal.
Oh my goodness!
Was a shock for her.
Right.
It was huge. They used to have these huge loudspeakers. You know, they were like 6 feet tall, and I don't know, really big thing. And they were booming behind her. And she was quite shocked because she had never heard that part. I mean, she only knew her part.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, she just carried on and
But she was
yeah.
fantastic, and she wanted so much to do it and to do it right. And she said she didn't know anything about politics or anything about this sort of situation. So this was all new to her too. But she was able to put over the right emotions and the right sounds.
Oh.
And she said once she got up on the stage, she was well. I mean, she could do her very best, and it was really something. I mean, it showed.
Wow. Oh, it's wonderful to hear about this, and I think you'll like our performance by Maeve Palmer, our soprano here in Toronto. It's wonderful to talk to you about this piece and about the archive. Now, is there a way, just in closing, is there a way that our listeners and people out there hearing this can support the Luigi Nono archive?
Oh, I sure hope so, because we are, financially we're helpless because we don't have. We have a very small amount of money from the state, from the country, and then the city doesn't give us anything. On the contrary, we pay them rent for the rooms that we use, and so we have a very nice, Friends of the Archive.
Certain listeners around here, I'm sure, are fascinated by Luigi Nono's work, so they can go to the website and check it out, or even go visit next time they're in Venice. They should
definitely. We're very happy to have visits, and I do a tour with from 1 to 20 people at a time.
Wonderful.
And show them everything, and I show his library, which is amazing. It's 13,000 books and scores, and so that's always very interesting. And people, it's fun for me because people go, "Oh, I have that book too," or they say, "Oh, Verdi, he had all these works by Verdi too," and he had this, and because he really had so much, everything, and also in many different languages, which he could read, and some that he couldn't read. There's a beautiful Chinese book that he bought just because it's beautiful and, physically fantastic big book. And then I found out one day when we had a visitor from Hong Kong who could read this, and because nobody knew what it was about, but it was huge, and it had beautiful pictures in it and written all in Chinese. And he said, "Oh, this is so interesting. It's about some war that they had, years ago, not recent. So it's a historical thing." And he was just, really surprised to find this in Nono's library. But it's really beautiful and it's huge. Mm-hmm. And my husband loves books.
Luigi Nono is certainly a maestro, according to us here at NMC. We're thrilled to present his La Fabrica Illuminata, and we're really so happy that you could tell us about his work and his life and about the Nono archive. And we'll all come when we can to visit the archive when we're in Venice.
We will be receiving the love and information.
Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you.